Hello, this presentation is entitled The Academic Paper from Conference to Publication. I originally gave this talk back in March 7th, 2013 as part of a conference for the Junior Faculty Development Program, which is sponsored by the American Councils for International Education. Mrs. Munawar Zaripova of Tajikistan was visiting us here at Lander University as part of that program. And we had a wonderful time having her around and getting to know her. And she had asked me to present this for her colleagues in her university in Tajikistan. Unfortunately, because of technical difficulties, the initial presentation didn't quite work out. So I'm just giving the presentation again, recording it, and putting it up on YouTube. So first of all, I need to say a little bit about who I am. I'm an assistant professor at Lander University, which is located in Greenwood, South Carolina. That's in the southeastern part of the United States. I teach world history and Asian history. My specialty is in Korean history, East Asian history, religion and violence, history of Catholicism in Asia, missionaries, that sort of thing. I presented at more than 15 conferences, and I have more than 8 peer-reviewed journal articles and book chapters, and I'm a manuscript editor for the Sunkyun Journal of Asian Studies. And so I'm telling you this so you can see the experience I have with this process. So while a lot of people have a lot more experience than I do have some experience both from the point of view of someone who is trying to publish an article and who is presenting at the conference, but also someone who works in editing. So from the other perspective, from what we're looking for in a good paper. One thing I should really stress, in addition to this process of getting a paper published, is the importance to academic networking and being a good colleague. Basically, my point here is that when we're trying to publish and present papers, we're not just out there to help ourselves, we're out there to help other people, to be good colleagues and to help advance scholarship. And I want to give you an example of how this works, how we can all kind of work together to help each other. So when I was a graduate student at the University of British Columbia, I missed a talk by an older scholar whose research I was really interested in. So I was able to get his email, and I contacted him, and he was very kind, and he shared his paper with me. And later, when he returned to my university, we were able to meet, and we had a nice talk. And we built up a relationship. Now, at that time, I was just a graduate student, and I didn't know a lot of people, and he was an assistant professor. And an assistant professor is kind of a beginning professor. So he was a young professor, and I asked him if he wanted to put together a panel for a conference. Now, the problem was I was asking him to put together the panel because I didn't know anyone. You have to have several people to be on the panel. And he was really the only person I knew to talk to about this. So he very graciously agreed to set up a panel with myself and another couple of scholars. And he was the one that took care of that. So this was him really being kind to me and trying to help me out. And this conference then led to a journal publication. There was a person in the audience who was a journal editor, and he liked our article or our papers at the conference and asked us to go ahead and submit them for publication to his journal because he wanted to run a theme issue. And that all worked out. So we were very happy about this. Later, when I tried to apply for jobs, this scholar who arranged the panel for me wrote letters of recommendation for me and helped me to get a job. So you can see this is someone who really took a lot of his time to help me in my career. And so once I knew more people and was able to put together panels, I was always sure to invite him. And that helped him later on to get tenure and get promoted to associate professor. So it's very important, I think, for us to remember how people have helped us in the past and to be willing to help them back. And of course, remember, once we do advance in our careers to help up-and-coming scholars, not only does that help us all to advance our careers, but that also helps scholarship, that helps advance our level of knowledge. So research, presentations, and publication are all very important. It is, for one thing, it's the duty of a scholar is to produce knowledge. I don't mean we should make things up, but what I mean is we should go out and find information and put it together and present it to other people so they can learn from it. In addition to being a duty, it's also a necessity. In English, we say that there's a saying, publish or perish, meaning you have to publish or you won't be able to keep your job. In fact, it's necessary in order to obtain tenure at most universities in the United States to publish a certain number of articles or even to publish a book. Now, this is also important because the more publications you have, the more that helps your university. Universities are often ranked and report back to the people who manage the university or who fund the university about how many publications they have. So your publishing helps to improve your university's prestige, which can also help your university to get funding. In addition, there's a close relationship between teaching and scholarship. By conducting research, we really get to know new material. By working with other scholars, we get to learn, and we can take what we learn and give that to our students. So if we're not out there learning and studying, we're not going to be able to teach. So it all is connected, teaching and scholarship, research. And of course, we have to stress that if you connect your teaching and your scholarship, that makes the most of your time. If there's a class I have to teach and I'm interested in conducting some research in that area, that all works out together, right? Because I will be researching for an article at the same time that I am preparing for that class. In addition, just from going to the conferences, you're able to learn things from them and use that to present, or use that when you teach. And of course, one thing I want to stress, when you go to conferences, it's an opportunity to get to know people, to get to meet people, and that will expand your scholarly network, which will help you to learn more and advance in your career and help other people to advance in their careers as well. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about how to come up with ideas for your research, finding a conference to present at, preparing for the conference, presenting at the conference, finding a place to publish your work, preparing and submitting your work, and developing your scholarly network. Now, coming up with ideas for your research can actually be pretty hard. It's not always clear what direction we should go in, and sometimes we run into dead ends and roadblocks. But it helps, first of all, of course, one thing you have to focus on is what is your degree in? What you study, of course, determines a lot of what you'll be publishing on. There are areas of it that I would like to research, but I don't have a degree in, and I don't really have the knowledge necessary to write something that would be suitable for an academic journal in those areas. For example, I think economic history is fascinating, but I haven't really been trained in economics, so I can't really write for economics journals. Another thing to ask is, what is your passion? What is something that is interesting to you? In order to publish an article, it can actually take several years, and a book can take even longer. So if you're not passionate about something, if you're not really interested in it, you're not going to be able to finish an article because it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of writing, a lot of research. You also have to ask what you can realistically do. We have to take into concern our family obligations, our teaching obligations. We also have to take in concern finances. There's a lot of interesting things that I would like to study, but I'm not able to because they are in archives far away. Or, for example, are in a language I don't know. So we have to make sure that the data is readily available. So, for example, I study Korea, but I can't get to archives in Korea very easily. It's expensive. So I study areas where I can actually purchase my own sources for a low price. So that's what I do to get around this problem. But you have to be realistic about your expectations. Another thing you have to look at is, what have you done previously? For example, you can usually try and revise your dissertation into a book, or at least get a few articles out of it. And a lot of times, what you'll find is when opportunities come up, you can look back at other research you've done and use that. Some people, what's very common, is to take papers that they wrote while they were in graduate school and rewrite those papers, revise those papers, and then publish them as articles. Now, there's different ways also you can take your knowledge and frame it. For example, sometimes I do a lot of work on Korean religion, and there was someone invited me to be on a conference panel on Korean missionaries. I didn't know a whole lot about Korean missionaries at the time, but because I knew about Korean religion, I said, okay, I'll do some research on Korean missionaries, and I was able to put together a paper that was then that was fairly well received. So you can oftentimes be responsive. Oh, there's a research area that I'm interested in this conference that just came up. I'll go do some research on that. Remember, though, that when you go give a presentation, you need to say something new. You're not just summarizing other people's research. You need to either be presenting a new discovery or arguing a new interpretation. So I just want to stress that you don't want to just be summarizing what someone else says for your whole presentation. You have to be presenting new information at a conference. Moreover, I want to stress that the purpose of a conference, and this is why I put these two things together, publishing a paper and a conference. The conference is really the first step towards publication. At a conference, you'll be testing your ideas, your new ideas, and obtaining advice. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that works. But when you go to a conference, you will receive comments and criticisms of your paper and meet people who can give you advice on your paper, who will help you to revise it so that you can publish it later on. I've been talking about conferences, but how do you find a conference? How do you find something to present your research in? And there's a variety of ways of doing this. One is to join scholarly associations. And these scholarly associations often have conferences. For example, I'm a member of the Association for Asian Studies. To become a member of the Association for Asian Studies, all I had to do was send in a check. I just had to pay for that membership. And every year they offer both a national conference and regional conferences. And I usually try and go to both whenever possible. And so if you're a member, if you belong to a certain occupational group or to a certain discipline, for example, sociology or anthropology or teaching English as a second language, you want to find scholarly associations that are in those areas. And you can go to those conferences. So I'm in the Association for Asian Studies and also the American Academy of Religion. Another thing to do that's very easy is to join an email list. For example, I'm a member of H Asia and H Catholic. The H stands for history. I'm also a member of the World History Association email list and the Korean Studies list. And all you have to do, you can just join to these lists through the internet. It's very easy. And so you just would do a search on Google or some other search engine for email list, email discussion list, and the field that you're in. And that would help you find these email lists, and they often advertise conferences and opportunities to present your paper. And a lot of times I found ones in the local area or have just stumbled upon some nice opportunities just through these email discussion lists. So that's of course very inexpensive. It's free to join those lists. Of course, as you build your scholarly network, you will also find yourself being invited to conferences. People will say, hey, do you want to come together to put together a panel with me on this paper, or on this topic rather? And you will be able to do that then and go to the conference. And sometimes you may even find yourself being forced, or I say drafted, into doing a conference. When I was a graduate student, our university was a member of a consortium of universities on Korean history, and they needed someone from our university to go to a conference as a representative. No one wanted to go, so one of the professors said to me that I was going. So they sent me, and they paid for my ticket, and it was a really wonderful conference, and that helped me to go. So one thing, you'll have opportunities like that come up where people will say, hey, you should go to this conference. If possible, I would, and especially if they're going to pay for it, I would encourage you to take advantage of that.